Hi there, it's Caroline Strawson here, rapid transformational therapist, helping you upgrade your subconscious beliefs and release any stuck trauma held in your body. So today I want to read you a little bit about my best-selling book, which is called Divorce Became My Superpower. And today the subject I want to talk to you about is something called gaslighting. Now you may or may not have heard of the term gaslighting. It actually came from a movie many years ago, where it was about someone saying something to another human being where you start to question yourself. You start to think, well, hold on a second, they're saying that, but is it true? Or maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. And you start to feel like you're the one that's going insane. Now, when we're dealing with narcissistic abuse, gaslighting is a massive part of the abuse. And I certainly can relate to this from a personal perspective. I didn't really know what narcissistic abuse was until I came out of my marriage. I didn't really know fully what gaslighting was until I came out of my marriage. Because before I got married, I was a confident, ambitious, intelligent woman. And by the end of my marriage, I was literally a shell of myself. I had no confidence. I had no self-esteem. I didn't look in the mirror. And then once I came out of my marriage, I was diagnosed with PTSD, which I now know would have been complex PTSD, depression, anxiety, and self-harm. Now that was just from coming out of a marriage. I was left in over £70,000 worth of debt. And then I had my family home repossessed as well in April of 2013. So you can imagine I'd got my 2 children and I'd come out of that marriage. So not only was I dealing with the legalities, the finances, but also that emotional impact, the psychological impact of being in a marriage like that. Something that I'd always thought, no, things like that, they never happen to someone like me. But sadly, I found myself in that situation, being the victim of narcissistic abuse. The beauty of that is now I get to help other people understand why they end up in a relationship with a narcissist, what they can do to get out of that relationship with a narcissist, and then how they can heal and thrive after narcissistic abuse, release that stuck trauma that is held in the body, that holds that somatic memory, by upgrading those subconscious beliefs that have you believe in some way that you're not good enough or you are not worthy. So today I want to read a little bit of a chapter from my book, which is called Divorce Became My Superpower. You can get it on Amazon. And it's really about my journey in my marriage, what I went through, and when I came out as well. So, you know, the names are changed in the book. Obviously, it's my name, but I have changed the names. But I want to read to you a little bit from chapter 3. Now, the title of chapter 3 is called I Think I've Killed Someone. And I just want to read you a little bit from this chapter, and just to see if you can maybe relate to some of it as well. So one day, James was due back from Los Angeles. He usually sent me a short text once he got in his car to drive home, but on this day, I hadn't received anything. Initially, I just thought maybe his battery had died. As time progressed, I still hadn't heard anything. I tried calling his phone and went straight to voicemail. Again, I just thought maybe he had no battery and the traffic was bad on his way home. 3 hours passed and still nothing. I was starting to worry, as I thought, what if he'd had an accident? So I called the airline to see if there'd been anything that had happened on the flight to delay maybe the crew getting off. I spoke to their scheduling unit and was told all the crew had disembarked and nothing out of the ordinary had happened on the flight. I found myself questioning him, again firmly saying, "Are you sure?" His reply in no uncertain terms on the phone was that the crew got off, and his insinuation was that who knows where my husband was. Another hour passed, and by this stage I could feel my anxiety growing. Where was he? This was not like him, and very out of the ordinary. So I called my local police station to explain that my husband should have been home, but wasn't. And I was worried, as it was out of the ordinary to hear nothing. They were lovely and really understanding. They asked for his car registration and the way he would travel home, and then they went off, contacted the paramedics to see if any crashes had been reported, as they said they recorded the number plates. When he came back on the line, he informed me that nothing had been reported. Another hour passed. It was now 5 hours since he should have been home. I contacted my dad, and I contacted my friends as I was getting so worried. I started to think I must try harder in my marriage and maybe things weren't so bad, and that I should make more of an effort with how I look and make him feel special. Then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Over 6 hours later than expected, my phone rang, and it was James. He was panting and sounding stressed. "I'm on my way home," he said. "Where are you? Where have you been?" I asked. What he told me next, I cannot even comprehend, because even as I type, it was totally not what I expected. "I've killed someone," he shouted down the phone at me. "What?" I exclaimed. "I can't talk now because I'm in shock, but a lady got off the aeroplane, tripped, and then fell and banged her head. There was blood, and then I had to perform CPR on her, and I killed her." My head was spinning. Was I hearing this right? My husband was telling me he'd killed someone. "Are you okay to drive?" I asked, because I couldn't quite grasp the situation and was worried maybe he was incapable of driving. "Yes, I'm fine. I just want to get home." With that, he hung up. I sat there in a daze. What had I just heard? I had so many emotions going through my head. Now, I had a medical background, and I had worked for the airline myself for 9 years, and this didn't make sense. Killed someone? Performed CPR incorrectly? What? But why would my husband be lying? But it didn't make sense. But why would my husband lie? I felt so confused. On the one hand, relief that he was okay and on his way home, but killing someone? I had spoken to the airline and they told me there were no incidents. Had they lied to me? Why would they lie though? They had nothing to gain from that. 45 minutes later, James walked in the front door. He pushed past me and took his shirt off and put it in the bin. "It's got blood on it," he informed me. I looked him in the eye and asked him what happened. "I don't want to talk about it," he replied. "I'm in shock." That didn't make sense, so I started to pursue it. "Please tell me what happened." James then proceeded to tell me about this old lady who he had been looking after all flight. She tripped up on her way off the aeroplane and banged her head. Once she had banged her head, it was bleeding profusely. She started to arrest, and he had to perform CPR. I asked him where all the other crew were at this time, as there are 15 crew on board a jumbo jet, all of whom are first aid trained. He just replied that he didn't know. I asked how did he know that she was dead. "She just was," he shouted at me. "Who took her away then?" I asked. "Where were the paramedics?" By this stage, James was very agitated and started shouting at me. "I'm in shock. Stop questioning me. I've just had a 3-hour debrief from the airline and I don't want to talk about it anymore." And with that, he went upstairs to get changed, leaving me stood at the bottom of the stairs, bewildered and confused. None of it made sense. The crew would have helped. The paramedics would have been there in minutes as it was on the ground and they would have taken over. But why would my husband look me in the eye and lie about this? You did get a debrief when an emergency happened, but then why had the airline told me there were no emergencies? My head hurt with questions and confusion. My gut was telling me this was all lies, but surely no one would lie about this. Who would go to such extreme lengths like this? Surely if you were late, you would just maybe say there was a traffic jam or my battery died. Maybe it was true. Maybe it was that far out that it was true. But it just didn't make sense logically. That night, James barely spoke to me. I kept asking if he was all right, and he would just mumble about being in shock as he had killed this lovely old lady. The next morning, I just didn't want to let this go as it seemed so unreal. I asked James to call his airline because I said that it was wrong that in such emergencies, when the crew were to be this delayed, that they didn't inform the next of kin. I told him I had called the airline and that they had told me that there were no incidents. He got snappy at me and just said he didn't know why they said that because there was a medical emergency. As he was saying all of this, the words of the man in the scheduling unit ran in my ears. There are no emergencies or any delays from the Los Angeles flight. All crew disembarked as normal. Who was lying? Him? My husband? But why would my husband lie to such extreme? I was so confused. James refused to call the airline, and I said they should call him then on his days off to check on him. Having phoned previously, I knew their procedures were that if there was an emergency, they would contact the crew on their days off to check they were okay. During James' 3 days off, we did not get any calls from the airline. The more I pushed James, the angrier he got at me. It got so bad, I didn't dare mention it again. And that's just a section of my book, Divorce Became My Superpower. And I wanted to share that with you because so many times we hear so many things about gaslighting. Now, I'm an intelligent woman and my gut was screaming to me, that's not real, that's not right. But my husband, the man I loved, the man I'd married, the man I'd got children with, was looking me in the eye saying to me he'd killed someone and that the airline were lying, that there was an emergency. And this is what we call gaslighting. This is about you starting to question yourself. Am I the insane one? Am I the crazy one? Was there really an emergency? And you start to question yourself because he's being snappy at you. And bear in mind, if you're coming from a subconscious belief of not feeling worthy or good enough, when they're shouting at you, you're going to feel that defensive mechanism in yourself that you feel like you don't want to pursue it. You don't ask any other questions because if they're shouting at you, that must mean because you're not worthy, you're not good enough. So I wanted to share that with you to show you what gaslighting can look like. Now that's an extreme version in a way, because you may be listening to this saying, Caroline, come on, really? He killed somebody? But this is what abuse does to you. It changes the physiological structure of your brain. There are areas, your hippocampus will get smaller. You get brain fog. You start to doubt yourself. Your amygdala goes on high alert. And these are both in your both of these are in your limbic system. The amygdala is on high alert and you are in a trauma response of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. The fourth trauma response we don't often talk about, but it is really relevant in an abusive relationship. Make excuses for them. So you're not just in a fight, flight, or freeze. That fawn trauma response is you will make excuses for them as well to stay safe in that relationship. So I hope that's made you feel like if you're maybe going through something like this, just stop and look at if your gut is telling you something isn't right, pursue it. I talk a lot with my clients about trusting yourself, and if you're feeling it in your gut, it is telling yourself something for a reason. We need to learn far more to start learning to listen to our bodies, particularly afterwards when we are recovering from trauma, recovering from abuse, because it isn't just a mind experience, it is a mind and body experience. And how I work with my clients is very much about upgrading those subconscious beliefs and that stored trauma that gets held in the body. Because I used to walk around like this so much and have this tight neck all of the time. You know, I'd be crying all of the time. I'd have this tightness in my chest and I'd be breathing up here all the time because of the trauma response I was in, and I was suffering with complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So if your gut is calling right now, seek help. Drop me a message. I have a free group on Facebook, or maybe we can work together on a one-to-one basis. And if you want to go and get the book to read exactly what happens in the story, Divorce Became My Superpower by me, Caroline Strawson, and it's available on Amazon and on Kindle as well, then please go ahead, go and buy it and let me know what you think. Can you relate to all the other things that I talk about? Because that's just one part of it. That's just one part of my story within all of that. But I wanted to share that with you because I wanted to talk to you about exactly what gaslighting is, because gaslighting will leave you feeling like you are crazy. It will leave you feeling and questioning yourself. Are you the insane one? And let me tell you, no, you aren't. You deserve to live a life filled with love and compassion and connection. So thanks for listening. It's Caroline Strawson, Rapid Transformational Therapist, helping you going on to live your best life by clearing all of that stuck trauma and upgrading those subconscious beliefs for you.